So at this point, guys, I probably said this a lot, but I really cannot emphasize it enough. I talk about theories, I love theorizing, and it is not always important for those theories to end up to be correct. What a theory is, in my mind, is really a placeholder. When we know that something is wrong, or we need an answer for some sort of mystery, or we're just enjoying the train of thought. And the theory is there to satisfy you until the truth is revealed. Now, what a good theory is to some people is different for others, right? There's different kinds of theories that appeal to us for whatever reason. Some people like imagining the best case scenario. Some people like imagining the various possibilities, something that could be new or weird. Or others, maybe closer to myself, like to predict mainly things that they actually think will end up happening. But for whatever kind of theory that you enjoy, it pretty much always ends the same, barring exceptional cases. These theories are proven wrong. Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, today I want to discuss Kaido, what was revealed in the last chapter, and how it supports the idea of one confirmed theory, and one of the most popular theories in the community possibly being debunked. So if you guys take yourself back a couple years to when Kaido was first introduced into the story at the end of the Dressrosa arc, introduced in person, we got to learn a lot about him, and a lot of it was dependent upon the translations that we had at the time, the hype for the future, but there was given the general impression that Kaido could not be killed. And a lot of people at the time took this to mean, especially when this was first revealed, that Kaido was essentially immortal. That is to say, he literally cannot die. The rationale for this is pretty obvious and straightforward. People have tried to kill Kaido on numerous occasions and have failed. Kaido himself even tries to kill himself. He is suicidal and yet still has not died. And so that sort of leads us into what was the real impression that the first chapter gave us when cut down to its bare bones, and what we got in the last chapter. The rope snaps every time that they try to hang him. The guillotine breaks. Spears break. And as was confirmed in the last chapter, Kaido literally cannot be damaged. His skin, for whatever reason, is basically impenetrable. Now granted, Luffy is not the strongest character in the world of One Piece, but I think that at this point he's strong enough to sort of gauge just how overpowered certain people are. When Gear 4th attacks do not do anything to somebody, they are basically indestructible. But I do want to make this clear, guys, just because Luffy is not able to damage Kaido does not mean that he is actually indestructible. It could just be that the amount of force required in order to do anything to Kaido is just that much higher than everybody else that it appears as though he is indestructible. Because nobody is strong enough to damage him. Or very, very few people. And even if you were able to damage him, that does not mean that you would be able to fatally damage him. Right? There's a difference. Luffy himself has proven that time and time again. He can absorb a ridiculous amount of damage. And he's vulnerable to it. But anyway, guys, all things considered, this reveal is not that surprising, because that was the impression that Oda gave when Kaido was introduced, that his skin was hard as armor. And whether it is a coincidence or not, this may be related to the fact that Kaido is a dragon, has a dragon devil fruit, or is an actual dragon, because often in dragon mythology, they are given impenetrable skin or scales. So yeah, this reveal is not surprising. But it's another time in which I want to argue that I really think that this pokes a pretty huge hole in the idea that Kaido is immortal. To me, there is a difference between being immortal and being indestructible. If you think of somebody immortal, you think of maybe Hidan from Naruto, or Greed from Seven Deadly Sins. They literally cannot die. You can poke holes in them, you can cut them up, you can do anything that you want to them, and they're just not going to die. I think that there is a 0% chance that this applies to Kaido. Straight up, he doesn't need the power, nor would it be really fitting. On top of the fact that I don't think that it makes any sense. Kaido is hard as armor, and attempts to find something or somebody who can pierce him, with the end goal being death. I think that this in and of itself suggests that Kaido can die. It is theoretically possible if somebody were to get through his armor. But that's the thing that nobody or very few people can do. Do you really think that Oda's gonna pull a fast one, not only on us, but on Kaido himself? If for, at some point in the story, right, maybe, Luffy wielding a katana goes awakened Haki super ultra instinct gear 6, right, and then pierces Kaido through the heart, and Kaido's like, yes, I can finally die, and then his heart regenerates and we find out that he's actually immortal. I don't think so. The reason why Kaido can't die is because nobody can pierce his armor. It's not that he can't die. And this is usually where people bring up miscellaneous causes of death, such as poisoning or drowning, and I think that we just have to assume that Kaido is, for the most part, immune to those things, or doesn't seek those ways of dying. It's stated that he is the master of land, sea, and air, so it's quite possible that Kaido, as a dragon or with his dragon devil fruit, can just breathe underwater. Dragons in a lot of mythologies are kings of the oceans, so that's not something that is out of the realm of possibility. As far as being immune to poison, you could look at his size, potentially. Or maybe that's just another inherent immunity. Maybe he's tried to kill himself with poison so many times that he's like Luffy now. But even beyond this, people will still continue to think about every possible way within the world of One Piece that Kaido could die if he was suicidal, and they'll find other reasons, like eating multiple devil fruits, and I just think that, guys, you are thinking way too much about it. Kaido can't die because his body cannot be pierced. Punches do not leave a single scratch. He is, as far as we are aware up until this point in the story, unfazed by all types of damage. And that is what Oda was going for, and that's why the narrator box says that he is a man who cannot die. That is what the story is telling us. So now, I hope that I convinced you, if you weren't already convinced, that Kaido is not traditionally immortal. He is, for the most part, indestructible, as far as any of our main characters care about at this point. What's the significance? Specifically relating to theories. Well, before, when Kaido was considered to be by many in the community immortal, and he literally cannot die, it gives a very unnatural vibe to it. Not to say that being indestructible is not unnatural, but considering that he is either has a dragon devil fruit or is a dragon, he's just a weird looking guy, this is the world of One Piece, not being able to harm him isn't too out of the norm. But incapable of succumbing to death altogether, now that's weird even on One Piece terms. It suggests some sort of new powers, new magic. It opens up a whole new door of possibility. And at the time, it reminded many people of the powers of Law's Opi Opi no Mi, which has a particular ability which, at the cost of the devil fruit user's life, grants somebody something that could be considered immortality, although its officially translated name is the Perpetual Youth Surgery. And so the popular theory for years now, and this was really, really popular, I saw it all over the place, was that Law, using pretty much the reverse of the immortality surgery, the Perpetual Youth Surgery, could undo Kaido's immortality, allowing the Straw Hats to become victorious. And in the process, he would sacrifice his own life, and so on and so forth. So I'm just gonna open the door on this one because I feel like I have a lot of headcanon here and it affects my views on how all this works. But at the same time, if we're assuming that Kaido is just as hard as diamond, it seems really unlikely that this is the result of the powers of the Opi Opi no Mi, its immortality surgery, perpetual youth. It's neither youth nor immortality. And just as a point of clarification, guys, perpetual youth could be a form of immortality if you're able to live forever, but that does not mean you have to be indestructible. So the idea behind immortality really is the lack of being able to die. And so age is something that kills everybody. So if you never age and you could theoretically live forever, you would be immortal. So that's likely where the translation discrepancy occurred when you have perpetual youth versus immortality. They essentially mean the same thing, but one is a little bit more specific. So it seems incredibly likely to me that Law's abilities just make someone not age, or age slower, something along those lines. And so again here, for Kaido, the boot does not fit. It's not the same thing. And if you're actually looking for a possible explanation for how Law's powers work within the scope of One Piece, I think the Whole Cake Island arc probably shed as much light on this as we could possibly have at this point, if there's any clues whatsoever. Big Mom is able to steal other people's lifespans, so life force, actual years of life, have a tangible existence. Pretty much everybody thought at some point during the whole Cake Island arc, specifically at the beginning, it was possible that Big Mom having the soul fruit and the ability to take lifespan might be consuming it to prolong her own life. But that wasn't the case. But I do think that this opens up a potential door for Law's ability. We know that in order to use the perpetual youth surgery, Law has to sacrifice his own life, his own lifespan, his own life force. In order to make somebody else perpetually young, grant them age, it seems really likely to me, or really possible to me, that what Law is doing with his perpetual youth surgery is taking all of his years of life and giving it to somebody else. So maybe more realistically, it isn't perpetual youth, but double life. And I do think that this works perfectly in where we think that this power is eventually going to go in the story. It's repeated time and time again that every move Luffy does, every fight that he has, takes a little chip away from his life force, from his lifespan. So if Luffy, when he was younger, could have lived to be 100 years old, right now he's only going to live till he's 60. And as he continues to fight strong people and push his limits, that number goes down and down. So then potentially you could have Law enter with this ability which could potentially save him, and I think that it will be at some point, whether it happens or not, a plot point in the story. Law can sacrifice his remaining lifespan to give it to Luffy so that he can carry on, but it wouldn't make Luffy perpetually young, as the name sort of implies. That's my headcanon anyway. And also, just to throw an idea out here, I know we're way off the topic of this video at this point, but just to throw an idea out there, it's also possible that Law, using this same ability, could potentially, I don't think he'll ever use it this way, steal lifespan from other people in order to increase somebody else's lifespan. I don't understand why it just has to be his own. As I understand it, inside the room, Law has control over everything. And approaching the idea from this would make for a great origin story for any immortal characters within the story. Say during the Void Century, the Ancient Kingdom fought against the 20 Kings. 20 Kings had the Opi no Mi on their side, and their leader was getting fed lifespan from thousands of captured, people from the Ancient Kingdom. The Ancient Kingdom fought them and then killed the guy who had the Opi no Mi. The double then went into the wild. Nobody could find it for 1,000 years until Law picked it up. But the original king who stole everyone's lifespan could live an additional, 3,000 years. I'm making this up, but that would be a really cool story. But yeah, as for Law reversing the Opi no Mi's powers on Kaido that was used on him in some way in the past, I'm not really feeling it at all. And the latest chapters seem to really support this notion. But yeah, guys, I got all sorts of sidetracked, and this one kind of lost my point, so we're just going to go ahead and call it here. There's always more to potentially say, but not always more to say today. As always, I am curious as to what you guys think about all of this. What are your thoughts? Share them. Like the video if you liked the video. Dislike the video if you disliked the video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.